Welcome everybody to the final film of the Roxbury International Film Festival. Closing night with Daniel Callahan, and come on in. We are really excited to have Daniel and Nerissa with us tonight to close out this festival that has been absolutely amazing. I mean, incredible films, incredible conversations with filmmakers, dance parties, conversation with Jasmine Guy, an incredible webinar and workshop on Black media makers here in Boston, Massachusetts, really making it happen. And so we are very excited to close with a local filmmaker because that's what we're all about, right? Is supporting local filmmakers, local ties, global reach. And that's really important to us. So here we are with Daniel and Nerissa, and we're just gonna have a conversation about their film. So ask them any questions, put your questions in the chat. That would be great, and we will monitor that. But I'm just going to start out because I know you guys so well, which is it's also really exciting to have you here. But Daniel, what was the impetus for this film? Like, why this film? It's a psychological thriller. Where did this come from?
Yeah. Man, first and foremost, thank you so much for all of this at a time like now, when so many filmmakers' hearts were crushed with this whole pandemic, because so many people had films that they had worked so hard for, and this is why you make films, to put them in front of an audience and get people to watch them. And so, man, thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you so much for including us in the festival and giving us this incredible, last night. I mean, that's huge. So thank you and your team for all the hard work.
Congratulations,
bro. Yeah,
the team is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I could tell. So that being said, to answer your question.
Yeah, there we go.
This film, the idea for this film had really been in my mind for I want to say 8 to 10 years. And the reason is because, I started as a musician and I was really into music for a while. The whole idea of the internal, what's happening in the mind becoming actualized is something that always fascinated me. I spend a lot of time in my head, and it was an amazing place in there, but it could also could get quite scary in there as well. And so I was always thinking well, what is the medium that can really express all that's going on in there? And through music, I really kind of was doing music videos, and I was usually in front of the camera, but when I saw all the magic happening behind the camera, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And this was a chance, this was an opportunity with the medium of film. It's a visual and audio experience. So all that stuff can be included. And I feel like this is the perfect medium, and this was going to be my first try at it. And what better project than to do something this ambitious and crazy. But yeah, I mean, the short answer is because I wanted to take people for a ride through my mind and what makes it such a amazing and also crazy and also weird place.
All right, well, there we have it. So I want to get back to all of that. I have lots of other questions, and questions are coming in. But Nerissa, what made you say, yes, I'm going to jump on board. I want to produce this. I want to be a part of this project.
Well, again, too, I want to say thank you to you too, Lisa. I think that what you're doing here is amazing, and I hope it never ends. I loved the script. I'm a proponent in telling our stories. I want it to come from us. Too many times our stories come from others who don't quite live the Black experience. And so the idea of putting their personal perceptual filters on our stories was a little annoying for me. So I wanted to be a part of telling stories for us, by us, with us, for us, all that great stuff. And when I met Dan, I think the first conversation I had with him was "We All We Got." I think that was the first conversation I had with him. And it had nothing to do with the film. It just meeting him and talking to him and absorbing his energy, because he gives off this awesome energy. We had the best conversation. And then he came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to read the script." And I said, "Okay." And he's like, "I'm thinking about producing it." And at first, I think it was a short at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then it blossomed into something much more, because I kept saying to him, but this is about a Black man, and this is about a Black man's mind. And what better way to uplift my brothers than to produce something for them, about them. And I am, like I said, I'm all about uplifting my people. So that was the reason why I said, "I want to be a part of it. Please let me help you." And he was like, "Okay." So,
I need help.
yeah.
I mean, like, talk about ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a feature. I'm just going to make a feature, and it's going to have all of these incredibly, intricate pieces that have to come together. And so when you're writing this, did you ever think, like, how am I going to film this? Like, how am I going to film this? Where am I going to get the money to film this? This is really intricate as you're writing it. Did that ever come through to you and say, maybe this should be a short first, and maybe we should, but I'm just curious how you made that decision to be very aggressive and just say, my first thing is going to be a feature, and it's going to be a psychological thriller.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, my original idea was probably way more ambitious than a feature-length film.
Okay.
It was involving like performance, and like I was like, I want to create a movie, but I want you to be able to like go inside of it. So I want to have like part of it be theatrical, and then we move to the film, and then we're gonna have like performances all throughout the city, and it's gonna be like, I was just on one. And
then you met NERISSA.
And then I met NERISSA. Yeah. and I like reality set in many different ways throughout this production. The thing is, NERISSA never said no to me though. Like NERISSA was always just like, all right,
Yep.
Okay, well, let me think about how we're gonna do that. Let me get back to you, or you should talk to this person. It was never like, bro, you're crazy. Like it was never that. Which is amazing. I mean, that's what you want from a producer.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, just finding the right partners is such a big part of it, right? Is finding someone who understands your vision and understands how to bring that vision to life. Mm-hmm. I think is when people are thinking about making movies. So this movie, as NERISSA said, like, supporting and uplifting Black men and wanting to support the community, but it's a lot of it is really about mental health.
Yes.
Right. And it's something that we don't talk about in the Black community. Yes. So why was it important for you to tackle that subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because it tackled me, like, yeah, I mean, I definitely got burnt out doing the music thing. The music thing, music industry is kind of crazy. And I was really left with like, who am I if I'm not doing music? What am I supposed to be doing in life? I had this very kind of crisis moment when I stopped doing music. And it was not good. Like I was not in a good place mentally, for a little while there. And I felt kind of trapped in my own mind. And that kind of feeling, I was like, I need to share this experience with other people because it was real. Like it was a point in my life where I didn't feel safe in my own head. And if you don't feel safe in your own head, where are you going to go? And so we go to things like alcohol, we go to things like drugs, we go to things like all different stuff when we don't feel that peace in ourselves. And not only was it me, but other people that I used to hang with, folks that I still hang with, I just saw were going through. And like you said, we don't really talk about this stuff. So it's really kind of like every person for themselves, like you just have to figure it out. And that's not healthy at all. And so I I wanted to bring attention to that struggle, that inner struggle that a lot of people are going through silently. And, you know, out of a perception of kind of weakness, or out of a perception of just not even having the words to explain to somebody else what you're going through. I wanted to be able to create something that attempted to do that. And I think in the process of it, I think someone else told me, like, you know, you being vulnerable and showing your vulnerability allows other people to do so as well.
Right.
There's, you know, healing can only happen when you are vulnerable, when you allow the wound to you know, be open. So yeah, so that was, you know, a benefit that I really even didn't see coming. For me, it was very much about just sort of working through that moment and what I learned, what I gathered from it, and sharing it with other people.
Yeah. And Nerissa, did you see that as you were reading it, and as you were watching it getting filmed, and as it was sort of starting to unravel? You know, what was your thought about, like, what this film story was actually telling? And, you know, if you can just give any thought about sort of how you helped sort of shepherd that Daniel's story forward.
I think for me, I'm a big, I like outside the box thinking, right? And I love thrillers, and I'm a huge fan of sci-fi. So, but there aren't that many films. I mean, since we've made this film, there's been quite a few
right
thrillers that have come along, and I was like, oh,
like
we're in the right boat, I guess. And so, but when we first got on this you know, train, there weren't very many out there. And so now it's when I was reading the script, it was so obvious that the you know, that Lee, the protagonist, was in so much pain. And it made me think of how many other of my brothers are out there in pain, and they don't have an outlet. And I've met so many brothers. I'm like, man, and they're artists, but they don't have anybody to say, you can be an artist. I have a cousin that died because his family wouldn't support the fact that he was an artist, and he was such a good artist. Like, he was an actual canvas painter. And so for me, when I met someone who, like Dan, and he said, this is what it's about. And because I asked him a lot of questions. I was like, so why is it about his mental health? What about it is so important? And he broke down these things, and I felt that in the beginning, and I wrote these things down, and I felt like as a producer, it was important to make sure that we always brought it back to that original feeling of why he wrote it to begin with. Because once we started filming, it became mechanical, and it started to come across as something that it wasn't supposed to be. And so me not standing in the way of his creativity, because I would never do that, but just kind of staying on the backside, cautiously saying, well, what about this? And were you able to convey that? And don't forget, you meant to do this for that. And then just being that person to always bring it back to the original feeling of making sure that we conveyed this. At first, when we first saw the first draft, it looked like a drama. And we were like, oh, wait, no, this is not the look it's supposed to get. And so it was a lot of going back and determining which scenes needed to be, you know, we needed to do pickups, and how do we change this feeling in this scene? And was it a change in dialogue? And if it wasn't, it was a change in mood. And did we have to redo something because of lighting? Like, it was, but we had the space to do that, which is a blessing, because not all filmmakers are able to do that. But we were able to, in the sense that, you know, Dan was in the fellowship at Emerson, and so it gave us an ability to do that. Would we be able to do it again without that? Probably not so much.
No, you don't think so, right?
It's a learning thing, right? And so we were able to put into perspective the things that were necessary to kind of take you just a little bit over the tip of, wait, am I finally going to meet his mind? Because that's the thing for me. Like, you never really met his mind.
No.
You understood where his mind was coming from, where it had been. And I thought it was beautiful how in the very end, which was a total pickup, I'm giving it away, I'm sorry, Dan. But in the very, very end, when he's painting his face, it was like, I actually cried when I saw that. Like, he didn't tell me he was doing that. So when I first saw it for the first time, I cried, because I was like, yes, Yes, that is what the film is all about, is finding the right way to express yourself.
Well, that's real, and that is a really important point, because we know that Daniel is an artist as well, and masking is such an important part of who you are and the workshops that you do around that. So, and someone's asking that in the chat about like talking a little bit more about that masking. Actually, I thought I was going to see more of the masking in the film, in the film that I did, but I think the way you used it was a really, you used it sparingly, but in a way that you have to remember the beginning and the end, right? So can you just talk about that whole concept of these masks? Because I do know, and if people don't know your other work, maybe you can even talk a little bit about that, because it does play an important role in the film, as Nerissa says.
Yeah, for sure. So usually when we think of masks, we think of things that cover our face or hide our identity. But what I try to do is I use paint, and I paint directly on the face, and I create what I call masks, but I spell them differently because the concept, the notion is not to hide or conceal, but to reveal who people are, and to use sort of line, color, and shape to express people's energy that I'm feeling and picking up, and my own energy that I'm feeling and picking up in the moment that I'm creating these. And so it's also a way to incorporate the human being into art. Usually we think of art as something that's, on the wall, that's sort of this object that we look at in isolation. But, when you talk about traditions of indigenous people all over the place, but especially African traditions of the diaspora, art is never separate from life. And there is the ritual of art making is a spiritual one. And that is about connecting the human with other humans and with the Mother Earth, with the environment. And so while I was going through that phase in my life that was very disturbing, I started doing this practice as a way to self-medicate, as a way to ease my anxiety. And it really became sort of a way of life, and a way of actually understanding myself and seeing the world. So that type of art form is I mean, it involves everything that I do. It makes its appearance in everything I do, including the film.
And what was the integration, and what was your thought behind integrating it into the film?
Well, I always knew that I was going to integrate it it wasn't even sort of integrating it into the film. The film was about that, the film was it was really about all the moments that led me up to that practice. And how to convey that in a way that people could understand, because most of the experience I didn't understand while I was having it. It was very
right.
Like,
yeah.
And so upon reflecting on it, this was sort of my way of like trying to create a map of that experience. And I think that's why the mask, I also didn't want it to become sort of like a
film about that,
like I just didn't want it to become a gimmick, like and where it's like, oh, I do this mask thing, so it's going to be in my film. It's more just like, this film is about how, it's really when Nerissa really broke it down beautifully. It's about how somebody can find a way to express themselves and be able to use that to move through a difficult time to a better place. And that's really what masking was for me.
And it continues to be. Nerissa brought this point up too a little bit about, and someone else mentioned it too in the chat, about like the struggle with sort of trying to figure out and be okay with who you are. And I think that, family dynamics played a role in this. And both of you maybe can speak to this, but, in the Black community, arts and culture is revered, but as a way to enjoy and see expressions, but not necessarily as a profession, right? And so as creatives, as artists and musicians and filmmakers, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm maybe it's not correct, but you struggle with like, this is a career and I'm not going to be a doctor and I'm not going to be a lawyer and I'm not like, what am I supposed to be? So how much did that sort of family dynamic, we see in the beginning, you come home, your mother's like, what are you doing? And you're having to struggle with that about coming home and feeling like a failure. And then who am I and what do I do? Because, truly you're this artist trapped, but other people want you to be something else. So can you just talk a little bit about that whole dynamic too, and how that, created this sort of like anxiety and issues around trying to figure out at the end of the film what you make, the decision that you make about who you are?
Yeah, sure. I see my mother is, speaking of mother, my actual mother is on.
Oh,
and let me see, she said, what's up, Mom? She said, in your film, it felt like the struggle mentally was a lot about being pressured to be someone other than who you are called to be.
yes, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm good at integrating questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's very much about not just who other people want you to be, but who you think you should be.
Right.
In the society,
yes.
right. Where it's
yeah.
like, there's only so many slots, Black man, for you to fit in here, and you got to pick one, because if you don't, you're going to end up in jail or dead, like. So, are you gonna be the athlete? Are you gonna be the rapper? Are you gonna be the hustler? Are you gonna be some people don't even have any more options than that. That's it. That's all you got. Biggie said it best, right? You're either slinging rocks or you got a wicked jump shot. That's literally how a lot of Black men feel like. And so when one of those doors closes, the anxiety ramps up so much, where it's like, how am I going to survive? What's my thing? What's my thing? What's going to set me apart? But also in terms of just how society sees us as, we either play these amazing, unrealistic roles, or we're a threat, right? Or we're a nuisance, or we're a drain on society. And no one wants to be that, So there's this immense pressure, especially for Black men who have certain talents or skills in one area. It's like, you have to make it, you have to make it. And
right.
if you make it, then it's like you're doomed almost. So I definitely, I felt that a lot of people, a lot of my homies, a lot of my brothers feel that on a daily basis, where it's like, I have to make it. And if I don't make it this way, like, who knows what's going to happen to me? I might as well die,
Wow.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, and especially when you're getting to folks who have less options in life. Like, I was blessed. I have a certain amount of options. I was able to do the school thing. I was able to, to have a family who could support me financially. But for folks who aren't blessed with as many things, the pressure is even more ramped up.
And NERISSA, Daniel's coming at this perspective, obviously, and writing this film from the perspective of a Black male and society. And here you are, coming along to wanting to produce that, but understanding, sort of what this meant and what he was going through, and being able to translate that and help him translate that into the feature that it became. So what were the challenges, if any, for you in sort of helping him, get to this point? And I can just imagine the conversations and the dialogue. We don't have to go into everything.
Yes,
I know the producer director role, and I know, Daniel strongly is like, this is the story I want to tell, and this is how I feel, and this is an experience, and you also being the producer to say, right, but this is the way that's going to best be able to tell that story. And being a Black woman, and a strong Black woman who runs your own company, there's a dynamic. So I just want to know, it was successful, you created it, but there must have been, or maybe, I'm just curious as to how that relationship went and how you helped sort of shepherd that vision.
Well, patience. A lot of patience. I had to make sure that I took my ego out of the equation, because he was under an enormous amount of pressure and stress. And so when if he lashed, I just was like, I just let it go. And I didn't take it personal because I had met the Dan before the film. And so
Yeah.
we had great conversation and went and had glasses of wine and sat down and really talked about like the industry and being Black in the industry and me being a female and him understanding
Right.
where I was coming from and him wanting to uplift me just as much as I wanted to uplift him, which I thought was absolutely admirable. And so I was determined to have that before we got into production, because in reading it, I could see that it wasn't just about Dan, the director or the actor. It was about Dan, the writer, and the things that he was portraying in the story. I knew, and I don't know how I knew, but I knew it was going to have its own psychological effect on him because
Right.
he was not, and on top of the fact that he was the director, the writer, and the producer. You know what I mean? So on top of all of that pressure and me having, done this before and being in this industry for as long as I have been, it was like, okay, on top of all of that pressure, he also has the pressure of really conveying a really good story about something that is him. It's in him. It's his life. And so I had to be very patient with that. And that for me was more important than making the film, because I'm not sure if he remembers me telling him this, but I said, if it starts to go left, we're stopping.
Wow.
Because
Yeah.
this is about your mental health and what you want to put forward on a film. And what I won't have is you looking bad. So if I see it going a certain way, I'm going to say that we got to stop, or we have to postpone, or we're going to have to come back to this, because I never ever wanted him to suffer mentally. Let me take the burden of the production. Let me take the burden of making sure that, locations are done. Let me make sure that the food is there. Let me handle all of the logistical stuff. But I really wanted him to have and know that he had somebody who could help him with that, so that all he had to do was really focus on the art. And I feel like as a producer that's really what my job is to make sure to not impede, to make sure that I'm helping to uplift, but then also being that person when I do come to him and I would say, now, Daniel, honey, gotta rethink that. And he would say to me, but Nerissa, and he'd just go into this big, huge thing. And I'd listen, but then at the end of the conversation, Daniel, we're going to have this conversation. And he, but it was because he trusted me. And he knew that I wasn't going to come at him and come out off the cuff. It was a real thing. So I think that was the key, is that we both recognized before we even started that we were here to trust and to help each other. And for me, that was a blessing, because as a woman, it's hard in this industry to find a man who actually wants to encourage and enlighten.
Right. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, when you think about it, Daniel, on your first major feature, to find that sort of relationship, and you must have shared sun signs or something. Like, you must be a Leo and a Libra, or a Cancer and an Aries, or it's like zodiac in here or something. I don't know. Or done a personalysis or something. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the ancestors looking out.
Yeah,
because even like the conversations we would have, looking back on it, I could only have that with Nerissa, and in terms of like, this is a woman I respect, like, and she can play the role of boss, but she can also play the role of mother when I needed it. She could play the role of sister when I needed it. She could play the role of, of director, because she's done all these things. And I think like it's not the kind of thing that you choose. It's the kind of thing that is given to you by.
Yeah, that comes to you.
Yeah, by the folks looking out.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's really a gift, and you're absolutely right. Someone's looking out. So Andrea, who played your mother, who is also on the film festival committee, who did the daily reads beautifully, by the way, says, was there something that surprised you in the process of making this film, either because some part of it was much easier than you thought or more difficult than you imagined? You had some good locations out there.
Mm. First off, shout out to Andrea Lyman. Played an incredible mother figure in the film. Another thing about her is that she actually brought food to the set one day, completely. No one asked her to do it. She just came with food and fed
Craft table.
People.
like what?
Catering.
You know what I mean? Like that's like that doesn't have that was just I was like, wow, this is
She's
she
like, y'all
really.
gotta put that
All right,
money.
so yeah, so let's get real. Like that's what's that to me. It's like the craft table and lunch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nothing moves without it. Nothing moves
Mm-mm.
without it.
All right, so back to the question now that we're
Okay,
thinking
all
about
right.
lunch.
Yes.
So what surprised you in the process? What threw you? What threw you? What? Yeah, let's talk about that. Challenges.
So everything was harder than I thought it would be.
Ah,
Because I didn't know any better. You know, like I would say looking back on it, it was and I'm not saying this like the acting was impeccable from myself, because looking at the film, I'm always seeing ways that I could have been better. But I think that I was able to not blow it as an actor with very little preparation. And I think
okay.
this was the only film that probably could have happened, because all my preparation had happened beforehand. And because I was the writer, I knew exactly what the writer wanted from each scene at each time. And because I was the director, I knew exactly what the director wanted from each scene each time. And because of the situation that the protagonist was in, which I would say like the 80%, 90% of the film, it's in this situation of like, oh shit, that's the situation the protagonist is in. And that's the situation I was in directing, writing, and producing the film. So I was really very much in that space. And that happened much easier, I think. And it had to, because there were so many other things that I had to have attention over, that when they said, when I said action, that couldn't have been something I needed to overthink, or that I needed to really spend additional energy on. So that was, I think, easier somewhat.
Yeah.
The hard things definitely were like, we had a lot of people work on this film, and people could only work for certain times. You know, like we were students. Some folks were professional. Some folks were, friends and family. Like we had a whole different like subset of people, and they
Right.
were coming in and out. So it was like a revolving door. So coordinating shoots, making sure we had the right amount of people. We did have a lot of locations. Thankfully, NERISSA took the organization around the sort of locking those locations down, but they would go offline for whatever reasons. Like they're like, oh, we can't shoot here anymore. Like a day before the shoot. So like there was just so much every day that was challenging. We shot over 40 days, which is like, most
40 days.
40.
Yeah, most features are shot like in like 20 something days.
Yeah.
Like, we doubled that.
Yeah.
Part of it was out of
No budget.
yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
So it was a long haul, man. It's definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done.
I would say that for me, the hardest thing was finding the moments when I needed to be hands off, because as Daniel has said, he'd never done this before, and because he was in the program of, he was at Emerson, and this was meant to be his baby, his final, hurrah. It was so difficult for me to be hands off, because there were times where I could see that it was becoming a little bit too much, and I couldn't step into that experience for him because
Yeah.
he had to have the experience for himself. And until you actually go through it, you don't know how to get through it in another sense. And so, and I've been beat up left and right in this industry. And so there were so many times where I saw him getting beat up, but rather than throw the towel in or go save him in the ring, I just had to stand on the side and keep cheering and saying, "You got this, you can do it."
Well, yeah, that's what you need. You need a cheerleader, right?
That was the hardest thing for me, because I wanted to jump in and help more than I did, and I couldn't, because it wouldn't have been fair to him.
Yeah. We don't have too much time and left for us to have this conversation. We could talk about it. I'm sure that there will be film schools analyzing this film for a year. Like, you know, like, what did he mean? Like, what, didn't he just go in that room and what, wasn't he just in the ocean, and is he standing by the water, and like, you know, what does that mean? Like, what, like, oh my gosh, oh, there's a mask and there's a little kid and there's a what,
I think they'll be trying to convince people not to do features in film school. I think that's what they're gonna do.
Like, don't do this. This is like really difficult. No, so what do you want people to take away? You know, ultimately, what is it that you want people to leave the theater feeling, thinking, doing after they see this film?
I'll go first just so you can end it out. How about that, Dan?
Cool.
I would say that I want people to, especially people of color, I want them to walk out and say, maybe I need to go talk to my son. Maybe I need to go talk to my husband. Maybe I need to go talk to my brother, maybe my uncle. Like, who are the men in your life that could possibly be going through something like this, and they would never tell you unless you actually went up and asked? That's what I want people to walk away with.
That is beautiful. I think for me, when I first started writing this, my goal was to have people feel that the line between their mental reality and their physical reality is much thinner and perhaps non-existent than they thought. That what you think really determines your reality, and your reality is really determined by how you think. And so that was really kind of what guided me through. I think on the other end of it, yeah, I think it's that people are able to feel like they can talk about the mental and emotional challenges that they face, that they can have conversations about that and use this as a conversation starter around that. Because again, I just think a lot of people are suffering, and you don't have to be, you know, clinically insane or have a mental disorder to suffer mental and emotional strain, you know, to
right.
Unhealthy, you know, like, you don't have to be bipolar to have really bad mental health. And in fact, there are a lot of people who have bipolar disorder who are actually very mentally healthy because they figured out a way to deal with, you know, with the challenges that brings.
Right.
So it's really just like, can we have more conversations about that, and can we be more vulnerable with each other about that?
That's beautiful, and I think that's really what it's all about, and especially now when there's so much uncertainty, that we really need to have conversations with each other, that we need to continue to connect with our community. And even though we can't do it in person, you know, this is an alternative, but it's an alternative that's important. And I think that we have found that throughout the festival, whether it's using filmmaker hangouts or doing the Q&A and having filmmakers come in and see each other, because, you know, you're not used to working in a vacuum. You're not used to working alone. You're used to working with a group of people and coming up with a creative content. And so, you know, I think that as we go through this racial justice movement, as we go through COVID, as Black people, that I think that's beautifully said. Like, for our own mental health, we do need to keep connecting with each other and checking in on each other, and understanding when someone may not be just right, and trying to help shepherd them through that. So we so it's much appreciated. We're excited that we could close with this film. We know that you are now in 2 more festivals, which is wonderful. Someone was asking where else they can see it. And I'm just assuming you're going to roll out this festival world and then figure out a distribution plan for it. And hopefully, I'm sure you'll let us know so that we can help support
Absolutely.
whatever comes afterwards for you. But I am very appreciative that we were able to screen it here at RoxFilm to close out the festival with it. And we wish you the best of luck. And that's a wrap for us.
Thank you,
Everybody. And I just hope everyone enjoyed everything that they saw. And then this. And what we didn't say was, if you had watched the films as you were supposed to watch them, just talk a little bit really quickly, Daniel, of Ash Gordon and Castle of Our Skins that performed right before this, because they were the folks that did the music for your film, right?
Yeah, so Anthony R. Green composed the main theme from the film, which is called "On Top of Frosted Hill," which is interesting because the mansion sat on the top of a hill, and we during winter, so literally was on top of Frosted Hill, even though he had written the piece a long time ago. But yeah, so he wrote that. He's one half of Castle of Our Skins, which is a music and education series. The other half is Ash Gordon, who is a violist, and she was one of the performers who performed that piece before the film started. And working with them has just been amazing. Again, like, I love the synergy of Black folks working together, across disciplines and across cultures. Castle of Our Skins really has a base in classical music, but they really are about exploring Black composers from all different genres and all different walks of life. And so being able to have a Black composer compose the score to the film, and being
that's what it's about.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's everything, not just in terms of them being Black, but in terms of the experience that they bring to their craft. Especially in a space like classical music, which is very Eurocentric. But
where you don't see us.
Within that, there's such a rich tradition of actually Black excellence in classical music. And so, being able to showcase that has been, really important. And just working with them is great. I mean, Ash, is a very, very personal friend of mine. We're very close, and just be able to work with her on a piece like this was.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that. It's just like sort of like seeking out, other Black excellence to bring to your Black excellence is how we do it.
Yes.
Can I just say a shout out to the crew? I love the fact that our crew was predominantly people of color. Like, we were all just people of color together making some magic. It was great.
Yep. And a lot of female energy as well.
Yes. Well,
is important.
I don't even know why we needed to go there, but anyway.
we got to until we don't have to, right? Until we don't have to, we got to.
All right, you two. Thank you so much. Great luck on this journey that you're going on. And of course we'll be in touch, and we're here if you need us.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for always supporting us. We're really, really grateful to you.
You were awesome.
No problem. It's our pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Peace. Good night. Thank you for sticking around.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we had good